Hello, I hope that that's working. Good evening, everyone. We're just going to wait for, I'm going to take these off because of the reflection. We're just going to wait for Sinead to arrive. Hello, I can see people joining. Okay, let's try this. It's just waiting for Sinead. Hopefully she'll pop in.
Hi.
Hey, she's there!
Fact.
Hey, it worked! Yay! That's always good. That's always good. I can see people joining now, which is great. Hi, everyone. Thank you
Hi, everyone.
for joining us. Great. Well, I think that we'll get started. So we're really excited about going through your questions and answering them. There have been some amazing questions that have come through, and we're going to answer them really openly and honestly and share our experiences. What I did want to say right at the beginning, or what we want to say right at the beginning, that this is very much based on our experiences. So it's not a substitute for any medical advice or anything. If you're not sure, then definitely go and speak to your consultant or your IBD team. This is very much based on our experience, but we had a chat a few weeks ago, and we have both seen that there is so much out there on social media about stomas and bags, and that's so great, but we felt that the J pouch is slightly underrepresented, so we want to give it some airtime, and what better time to do that than Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week. So I guess a good start is for those of you who don't know us to kind of introduce ourselves. So I'll let you go first, Sinead, and share with everyone a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sinead. So I was diagnosed with colitis in 2017. It was quite sudden. I actually ended up with sepsis in hospital, spent 3 weeks, and then had a subtotal colectomy, and then, left hospital with an ileostomy bag. When I left hospital, they hadn't spoke about the J pouch. It wasn't anything that was discussed with me. So I found out about the J pouch from Instagram, and it completely hit me off. I just thought, I don't want to go for that. But here we are.
Cool. Okay, great. I see you've got a Christmas tree in the background, which is so
Yeah. It's never normally up this early, but it was actually Mike's idea. He's like, let's put it up.
I love it. I love it. If you don't know me, I'm Clemmy. I was diagnosed age 9 with ulcerative colitis. Had quite an aggressive and kind of complicated couple of years, and aged 11 had my colon removed, and then I had an ileostomy bag throughout my teenage years, and then I had a J pouch and like construction and all the surgeries done during my gap year. So whilst all my friends were planning their travels and jetting around the world, I was planning my hospital visits. And I am now 31, so have lived with it for a bit longer than Sinead has. And our journeys, although similar in some ways, are really different in other ways too. And that's why we thought it was really good to have both of our opinions on this to kind of give you a good idea. So I guess, shall we get started? So first question is to you, Sinead, is what made you want a J pouch?
Like I said, the J pouch wasn't something that was really discussed with me. I found out a lot about it on Instagram, and I decided that I didn't want it. I then went to see my surgeon a year after I'd had my ileostomy, and she raised it and said, do you wanna think about it? She's like, I think you should speak to the IBD team and see what they say. So I went prepared with a list of questions, and I left that appointment and I thought, do you know what? I want to give it a go. The IBD nurse did say to me, it's going to be hell. Your life's not going to be fun. Do you know what? I can do it. Like, we'll give it a go. And I'm glad I have. But it was kind of a short, snap decision, really.
Maybe on Sinead's connection, but hopefully that's going to come back.
I think we might be having connection problems. Is it me?
I don't know if anyone else can comment. Are you saying that you can't see Sinead's
Just checking if everyone can still hear me.
If anyone could comment. It looks like it's just stalled. I can still see Sinead. Can you still hear?
Is it Clemmy's that's gone funny? I can't see Clemmy. Can people still? Oh, can you hear Clemmy?
So it must be my internet. Yeah, hopefully it's connecting now and we will be back online in no time. Sinead, I don't know. It says Sinead was unable to join. We're going to try again, hopefully. So bear with us. Sorry, guys. Hopefully we can get her back. Okay, so let's do that and request Sinead. Sorry, guys. Thank you for waiting. We will get here. I'm so worried that you just
Is that what happened? Sorry, I just couldn't see you. It kept going round and round.
I know, mine kept going round as well. Anyway, hopefully we won't have any more technical hitches, but we'll carry on. People are still here. We're all good. Anyway, the IBD nurse, I think you were saying like the IBD nurse said that you'll go through hell.
Yeah, so that was it. I kind of made my mind up from there. I then joined some Facebook groups and it was really interesting just to see like the positives and problems that I might face. And yeah, I was just really excited about it from there. So what about yourself? What made you want to go for the J pouch?
So interestingly, I think because I had my colon removed so young, they just said to me and my family, like, we'll remove her colon, we'll then let her grow and develop, and then in her, like, when it's suitable time, maybe in her gap year, then we'll just reconnect her back together. So it was like, I think it was something that never really seemed like an option not to have it, which was now kind of looking back on it, I suppose is kind of weird. It felt like my whole teenage years was basically like building up to the moment to have the J pouch surgery, and that was kind of in my head for ever since I can remember. Was always the plan. So I didn't really choose to have it. I suppose it was just something that was part and parcel, but I'm really glad that I
did you have any concerns when you were told that that's what was your next thing to go through?
I think interestingly, again, because I was so young at the time, I'm not sure I really understood what I was letting myself in for. I think that kind of looking back on it, I was like, had been working for 6 months in my gap year and just been like living life and doing whatever, and then finished work, and then like the week later was in hospital having my surgery. And looking back on it, like I didn't prepare myself physically. Well, I was physically fit, but I didn't prepare myself emotionally for what was about to happen. Like I'd lived really happily and really well with my bag all through my teenage years, hadn't had any problems, like it totally gave me my life back. And I don't think I had any idea what toll the surgery would take, particularly having been so well and then going to kind of dealing with the hospital visits again, and the pain and the fatigue and everything that comes with that. So I think at the time I didn't have any concerns, but if it was right now that I was having it, then I think I would consider, now I kind of am a bit older and I'm a bit more aware of the fact that you can have complications and that pouchitis is a risk. I would certainly like think about all those things and take that into account. But I've been pretty lucky on my journey with my J pouch, that I haven't had pouchitis. I have had some problems along the way, and it's by no means been a smooth journey, but I haven't had the pouchitis or any blockages. I know that that was another question that we had. That I've been really lucky and I haven't had any of those. But I don't know what I guess for you, you had it at an age where you were more able to kind of contemplate the risks and realize them. So what were your concerns?
Honestly, I didn't have any. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it. There's some success stories. If something goes wrong, it goes wrong. But I thought, for me, I don't like to focus on things that could go wrong, because I think if you keep your mind positive, then hopefully things will go quite well. The thing that a lot of people have concerns about is fertility with J pouch. And yeah, that was something that I did raise with my surgeon. I did have that conversation with them. And the surgeons did say to me, are you sure you want to do this before you have kids? But for me, the thing with the fertility is it just causes scarring on your fallopian tubes. And it's like my husband and I said, for all we know, either one of us could already be infertile. So we could stop my health and me trying something for something that actually we might not already be able to have kids. So we looked at it like that. And yeah, put everything else.
I think that's a really interesting point, because it's something that I think was kind of warned to me when I was 18, but at that age I was like so far away from thinking about having children that I was just like, oh, it doesn't really matter. But I think it wasn't until later on when I started looking into the things that you can get around fertility that I think there's a lot of kind of misconception about what risks there are with having J pouches and fertility. And it is absolutely, as you say, it's to do with the scar tissue and the fact that you can have adhesions and things like that then can, because of our intestines and everything like that being so close as women, well, and men really generally, but anatomically it's so close, and that's what the issues are. It's not that having the J pouch automatically means you're less fertile. It's the fact if you have more scar tissue or complications or anything like that, then that can increase your risk of infertility. It doesn't mean that if you have the J pouch you're going to be infertile. I think that that's a really interesting thing, and something that
I think for me as well. So my surgeon, because I still had inflammation in my rectum, so I although I'd had most of my colon removed, they had left my rectum, like a small bit of my large bowel. So I still had quite a lot of inflammation in that, quite a lot of bleeding still. So for me, they said, you've kind of got two options. We go down the J pouch route, you give that a go. If it fails, you come back to kind of where you are with a little bit less small intestine, or we go and we do the Barbie butt surgery. So there was two surgeries that I was faced with, and both of those came with the risks of the fertility and the scarring. So I thought I'd go for the J pouch and see how we got on.
See how you go. So, and I guess that kind of leads to the next question, which was we had a question about, do you still have any IBD symptoms? And I think, yeah, I'll let you kind of go first with that one, because I think you've got a much more interesting stuff to say.
So my diagnosis was colitis originally. I underwent quite a lot of testing before my J pouch because they wanted to be sure that I didn't have Crohn's disease. So I had sigmoidoscopies, pouchoscopy, cameras. I also had a gastroscopy where they put it down your throat. I had a capsule endoscopy where you swallow a little camera and it makes its way out and then it ends up in your bag, just to try and rule out Crohn's disease before they did it. Obviously since my surgery, they are thinking that my diagnosis has changed. So my surgery was only in March. But I have had problems with fissures. I have 2 fistulas, which have caused a lot of abscesses. I've had 3 surgeries to help drain those abscesses, and I've now got 2 setums. So they are a bit of thread that goes through the fistula tract, and they're external, and they just basically help the fistulas drain any infection that's in there to come out. And I still get mouth ulcers, but apart from that, like stomach-wise, cramping, bleeding, I don't experience any of those things. Like my pouch, for me, is functioning really, really well. Is there anything that you suffer still with your IBD?
Not so in terms of like gastrointestinal stuff, it's something that I used to have problems with. So I had problems with like having quite a lot of diarrhea and that kind of stuff, and not being able to work out what that was. And I had loads of, I also went through a stage, probably in my early 20s, of like feeling quite unwell all the time, and I lost quite a lot of hair, and every time I ate I felt really sick, and they couldn't work out what the problem was, and they said like, you don't have pouchitis, so we think you've just got IBS and you just need to get on with it, which I then went to see a nutritionist and realized that actually diet is really important to like a good quality of life and with inflammatory bowel disease, but also it's important to focus on with your pouch. And I think for me that was a really interesting thing, because I think when I had the surgery initially, they said, oh, we'll remove your colon and we'll remove the diseased organ and then you're cured. But what I realized on is it's that actually at that stage you're in surgical remission, but it doesn't remove some of the other stuff, and so you still have to look after yourself, and I don't think I was doing that well. And it was that experience actually that led me on to becoming a nutritionist, and now I specialize in helping people with IBD and work with a lot of people with pouches as well. And so that's been like a real journey for me to work out what works for me and what doesn't, and it's still an ongoing journey. I do find that like I do suffer with fatigue occasionally, and like definitely have a more sensitive digestive system generally, but apart from that, I don't have like lots of IBD symptoms. I had a sigmoidoscopy a little while ago now. I'm due for another one, but we keep putting it off because I don't want to go in for it. They did find one small ulcer in my rectum, but he said that they just need to keep an eye on that and keep checking bats to keep checking that it's okay. But apart from that, no other symptoms, which is lucky.
So talking about diet, is there many things that you've cut out, anything that you've had to stop eating, drinking?
So it's, as I said, it's been a journey. There's certain things that I've worked out for me don't agree with me at all, but I guess it's important, like from my kind of work perspective and everything now, is to say like everyone's different when it comes to what works and what doesn't work for them. I personally have found that I think I've always been dairy intolerant, because when I was swapped onto cow's milk as a baby, I projectile vomited the whole time, everywhere, and no one could work out what it was, because I don't think they really realised what lactose or dairy intolerance was then. So I think that's always been an issue for me. And for me as well, I find that if I touch any gluten, I bloat and I'm in loads of pain. Like that. So they're the ones, kind of the main ones that I've worked out over the years that don't work for me. I also find this, like some things that don't work. So alcohol for me, annoyingly, really doesn't seem to agree, although I'm not very good at not having it, basically. So yeah, there's certainly things from a dietary perspective from where I was in my early 20s, when I really wasn't doing that well, I don't think, and had quite a poor quality of life in my pouch, focusing what I'm eating and like the way I'm living and all that kind of stuff totally makes a difference to my my quality of life with my J pouch. I don't know if you're kind of earlier on in your journey, so I don't know whether you found or whether you've had to.
No, not really. There was a period where, again, quite a bit of dairy and fibre was making me quite uncomfortable, really bloated, quite painful. So I just started, I read a lot about Greek yogurt. So I switched to Greek yogurt. I'd have that for my breakfast. But I'm fine with alcohol. But yeah, no, there's not much that I've had to rule out really. I probably eat more now with my J pouch than what I did with my ileostomy in terms of blockages as well. So that's quite good.
It's all good.
And the one thing I will say as well, because I did notice as well that you're the same. So since I started taking Simpro, the probiotic, I noticed such a difference to my pouch. So before I took that, I'd be quite uncomfortable. Again, lots of bloating, lots of trapped wind. And then 3 weeks since taking the Simpro, I felt like a different person. So
I think that's such an interesting one. And the research around Simpro, there isn't with J pouch. There's a little bit with ulcerative colitis, and they've done some research with IBS. But I think it would be really interesting. I've seen that in a few people. I think it'd be really interesting for them to do some. Maybe I'll speak to them about doing some research into Simproof for J pouches, because perhaps it is something that has some legs to it. And it's really interesting that it was actually recommended to me by my gastroenterologist, and he went basically couldn't work out what the problem was, and then, we don't. Why don't you try a probiotic and see if that helps? And there certainly is some research looking at a product called VSL3 in terms of treating and preventing pouchitis. So there certainly seems to be some legs to probiotics perhaps being beneficial for that. So I think that's a really interesting one that you discovered as well.
That brings us on to our next question. How often, this is probably the question I get asked most often, and that is, how often do you go to the toilet?
Yeah, so this is a good one, and I'm so glad that people asked about this, because I think it's really good for us to talk about poo a bit more openly, and it is something that's of a concern to people. I know when you go from having a bag to having the J pouch. So for me, I guess I go like when I wake up in the morning, and then pretty much it's like a 1 in, 1 out meal situation, basically. Like once I've eaten, then I will normally go to the loo after that. So I suppose I go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like 6 times a day or something. But it doesn't really, I've just got so used to that being the case.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much
I don't know how about
you eat something and you know within 5-10 minutes you're going to need to go to the toilet. But yeah, so I'd say on average probably between 4 and 7 times I'll go to the toilet. And I find that at the moment, I'm up probably twice a night to go to the toilet. And that's, so the 4 to 7 times, that's without taking any loperamide or Imodiums. So I'm quite happy with that, because I know there's a lot of people who will take those to reduce the amount of times they go. If I'm going on a long journey, or if I want to get through the day for a little bit longer, then I know that if I take loperamide or Imodium, that I'm not going to go as often, but I'm quite happy I don't need to take it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's something I actually, I forgot about this actually. So when I first had it, they actually had me on codeine to reduce my going to the loo. And it's something that I ended up being on quite a high dose of that for a really long time. So 10 years. And it's only something that I've recently, it took me 2 years to wean myself off it, basically. But my going kind of after every meal is not taking anything. And I'm similar to you. So it's very rare that I make it through the night. Up. I basically think I do it in my sleep now. Like I don't even turn the or anything. I think you just like sleepwalk into the loo, go to the loo, and then go back to bed. But it's normally like I wake up around 4 o'clock. so can't quite make it through the night. But I think it definitely depends. I don't know you. I think it's like how much I've eaten. If I've had like a really big dinner or like loads that day, then I will be up maybe
Oh,
two
see,
or
I don't
three
think
times
mine,
a
because
night.
I did try for a little while to stop eating after a certain period of time, but no, I'm still up. But then I think maybe it could be a little bit psychological where I'm waking up and thinking that I need to go because I'm so used to it. It's almost like a habit.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. So about it, I think our bodies probably get into that habit of just like waking up and then you're like, oh, I need to
Yeah,
go to the loo, even if you don't need it. But I always have that as well, that I don't know about you, but I always like try and go to the loo before I go to bed, or I always
yeah,
like go to the loo before I leave the house so that I'm
yeah, yeah,
empty
I'm like
before I go
that. Buy
anywhere.
myself a little bit more time.
Exactly. We've had as well, like about the formation and how different the output is. I don't know if they mean like how different it is from what it was with the bag or not. I don't know if you want to
So if you're
speak about
comparing
that.
it to the bag, I don't think it's much different. It's the same consistency. It's all coming from the small intestine. But obviously, if we talk about from the large bowel, it is quite different because the large bowel is where it takes all that excess water out of it, kind of compacts it all, and then you push it out. So really, the formation for J pouch is kind of porridge consistency, and sometimes it can be a bit looser depending on like what we've had to eat or drink.
Yeah, I find exactly the same thing. I find it, yeah, definitely depends on what I've eaten. Like if I do have an alcoholic drink, it's
Yeah.
normally more watery for me. Um, and yeah, so I think that's an interesting one. The next question we had was about do you suffer from itching or burning skin around your bum, and does that go away after a while? I think this is such a good question. Do you want to you probably perhaps experienced this maybe more recently,
Yeah,
but
so
I think it's a really good question.
when you first start, when you first have your J pouch, obviously you've not used your bum for quite a while, and poo is quite acidic, so it can burn, it can be quite painful. But getting like a really good bum cream, it does eventually go. I still get it now occasionally, but it's not as bad. Your skin gets used to it after a little while.
Yeah, I am exactly the same. I used to have it really badly, and it's that like that burning feeling that it literally takes your breath away. It's that like stingy, and I do occasionally get it now. I definitely found that changing my diet a bit helped. I think for me, I was having quite a lot of dairy before. Dairy is something that really me, and that won't be the case for everyone at all. And it's obviously not the case with
Yeah.
you because you have it and you're fine with it. But I think that for me was an interesting one, and as you say, like for me, I didn't poo properly for 7 years, so my bum didn't get any kind of use for 7 years. So I think it was a bit of a shock to the system when it started having poo coming out of it again,
It
and
was,
it was
and
a weird
the thing
experience
I found as
in
well is
itself.
obviously people prepare you for bum burn and they tell you all about it, but for me it wasn't what people had said, so it's quite internal. So I spoke to my stoma nurse and I was like, it feels like I'm burning inside, and she was like, yeah, that's because you've got skin up there. So she said that you actually have to put a bit of like your bum cream inside your bum to get that to go away. So that wasn't anything I knew before my surgery. So that's a top tip for anybody who is facing J-pouch surgery, that you do need to get the cream up your bum.
And I don't know what creams you use, but I found like Sudocrem and also Bepanthen, the nappy cream, is really good. Or like Vaseline, I think can be good. But my top tip as well would be don't wait until you've been to the loo to put it on once it's burned. Like if you as you're going to put the barrier cream on and in, and then go to the loo, and then that
Yeah, and
helps.
doing it
I don't
after
know if
every
you found
time.
that too.
Don't like in the early days. Don't think that you're lucky and you've got away with it. Just use it from day one. Keep up with it, and then hopefully it won't be too bad. Okay. So next question was, how long after surgery did you return to work?
So for me, I was on my gap year at the time, so I didn't have work to return back to. As such, but I think I had my second like part stage of my surgery in April. And then I think I recovered quite quickly from that second bit. The first one I didn't recover that well from, and then I had a 3-month break, and then I had the second stage. But by October, I was like firing on all cylinders again, and I started uni and was like totally fine and basically didn't look back. So I guess that's like quite a few months, but I can't really remember what was in between that. But I think I definitely remember the recovery from the second one for me being a bit more quick. But I guess for you've been working, or you were working quite recently, and
Yeah,
I don't know how long it took you to get back to work.
Second step, so the first step, I was quite ill in between, so I took a month off work, and then I did end up having to leave work quite a few times and ended up having quite a few hospital admissions. The second surgery, so my takedown, I went back to work after 2 weeks, but I was only in the office for a week because obviously with COVID, it was work from home. So when I was in the office, it was fine, and then working from home, I was only working from home for about a month because I was made redundant. But I think I would have been fine to continue working in the office. Like I felt well, I felt fit enough. And I think for me, not being in the office, not having to go out, probably delayed my recovery a little bit, because I think when you're at home, you get a little bit lazy because you think the toilet's there, so you think, oh, I'll just go. Where when you're out and about, you'll hold it for a little bit longer, you'll give yourself more time because you don't want to use it as much.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting idea, because you do have to train your pouch a bit and also train yourself. So I found kind of training myself to know again what that feeling was like when I really needed to go, or when I could hold it a bit longer. Like quite a long time for me to work that out. So I think that that's a really interesting point you make there, that actually you do need to push yourself, I suppose, a little bit so that you can train it to like okay, what was the next question we had? So we had how did you prepare for surgery, and what things do you take with you to hospital?
Before surgery, I joined the gym. I thought it'd be really good to try and be a little bit fitter, work a little bit on my core muscles. But also, I did my pelvic floors. So I downloaded the NHS Squeezy app. You don't need the app, you can do it without the app, but for anybody considering having a day pouch, it's so important. Like even now I still do my pelvic floors, like sitting in the office or driving to work. Like it's so important because that's going to help you give a little bit more control and have like not leak and stuff like that. And then my hospital bags, I always pack 10,000 night dresses. Just because you can then have a clean one every day if you have any leaks or any problems. You've got something comfy to put on. Bum cream, taking wet wipes, and lip balm. They're like my essentials. How about yourself?
I love so in terms of my preparation for surgery, as I've touched on already, I think I prepared really badly. So my advice, so I was like quite fit anyway, because I'd been doing quite an active working job for 6 months. But I think for me, if I look back on it, actually, I wish I'd prepared myself more emotionally. So I remember so clearly my mum the night before, like we had a supper as a family, and that was really nice. And she like took me to one side and she was like, have you like thought about the surgery? Like, have you prepared yourself emotionally? And at the age of 18, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, mum. Like, I'm fine. And she's so right. And I remember so clearly, I went into the hospital and like felt fine about it, and I went into my room and they gave me the gown and they said, oh, go to the loo and like get changed and get into your gown. And I remember like getting changed, turning around and seeing my reflection in the mirror and just being like, oh my god, this is happening. And just feeling so overwhelmed that I burst into tears. Came out and my mum was like, "Yep, you didn't know yourself emotionally, did you?" Um, I definitely think in terms of, I know that's not like that, I guess, practical preparation, but if you've had your bag for a long time and then you have the surgery, like I think kind of thinking about it and preparing yourself for what's coming up, like not scaring yourself, but being I think just, yeah, like mentally psyching yourself up so that it's me. I just didn't even think about it, and then I was like, whoa, this is happening, and then it's all a bit like overwhelming for me. So and then in terms of what I take into hospital, like something to do and to read, and then my own pajamas, or I found actually like having an old like baggy shirt. So actually when I was in hospital when I was younger, I used to wear my dad's old office shirts because I found them like they were nice and cotton but big and like not too restrictive. So I think, yeah, definitely some home comforts are a really good thing. And definitely the bum.
Yeah, that's an essential. Right. So another question is it a possibility to have the J pouch if you still have inflammation and bleeding in your rectum?
Yeah, so I thought this was a really interesting question, and I guess it's something that you definitely have to speak to your surgeon consultant about. I know that I've said that I still do have some ulceration in my rectum that seems to still be there from the sigmoidoscopy that I've had. But before then, when I just had the rectal sump, I had some mucus and stuff, but I didn't have any bleeding or inflammation necessarily in there. But I know that you've already touched on the fact that you did actually have some and you still managed to go ahead with the surgery. So maybe you can
Yes, so
share
I'm
under
St Mark's in London. They are pouch specialist hospital. So I was referred to them just because my local hospital, they do pouches, but they don't have a lot of experience, and they wanted to give me the best chance at it being successful. So I did have quite a lot of inflammation in my rectum still. So there's two options. You can either have the rectum kept in if it's healthy, they can connect your small intestine to the top of that. If it's not healthy, they can get rid of it. So in my case, they did get rid of it. If it's healthy, they would rather keep it just because you've got those muscles and it is used to holding it. I think they think that it's harder and you've obviously got a little bit less bowel to play with. But yeah, I've had mine removed and I'm doing fine. Okay.
That's great. That's so interesting. I that they could do that. So I
Yeah,
think
if
that's
like
a
I
really
said, if they
interesting
can keep
point.
it, they will try. But it is an option. So if you do still have problems and you think that you would like to have a J pouch, definitely discuss it with your team, with your surgeon, and see what they say.
Great. The next question was how do they decide when you
Say
have
that
a
again.
takedown?
Oh, how did they decide?
When
So my
how do they
surgeon always
decide?
said that they give about 6 months, and then it's just to see really how you're doing, how you've recovered. They will do I can't think what it's called, a pouchogram. So they will put you on a table, they squirt a dye up inside, and they just check that there's no blockages or anything like that. Mine was 5 months, my takedown, but I'd suffered quite a few problems during the two surgeries. I had narrowing in my stoma, but I think he would have left me longer if I didn't have the narrowing. But I do know of somebody who had her J pouch created. She stayed in hospital for a week, and then she had her takedown. Yeah.
Wow, okay. It was only so I had my the J pouch construction in January, and then by April they then did the reconnection, did the takedown for me, and I think, and actually they had planned to do it earlier than that. They had plans to do it earlier than April, but I basically didn't recover that well, and I think it was more like I didn't have any problems. I just struggled to get going again afterwards. and like felt quite bloated, and just, I think again it was like the psychological side of it. Like I'd felt so well, and then I like had gone to having surgery again, and so yeah, I think for me it was only 3 months, but I think it I guess it just really depends on you and what is going on. I'm sure there's lots of different moving parts that helps them to decide how long between. But it's interesting your
Yeah, again, I think
months
that's
normally.
probably because they've probably got quite a big wait list. So I think they're probably buying themselves a little bit more time.
We'll give you 6 months if we can get you in sooner.
Yeah,
We'll
preparing
try.
for the worst. But yeah, no, I think so. Like I said, I think it is possible. Some surgeons do it a lot quicker, but it really just depends on how you recover and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. I think there was
I think we covered a couple of the other ones within.
about I have, yeah, the last couple of questions were one was about blockages, which we've talked about. I don't know, have you had
No,
a
touch
blockage
wood.
or any problems like that?
No, I have got. So
Me too.
I don't know about you, so this wasn't a question that's asked. But I have my J pouch keeps narrowing, so I had to have two EUAs to have my pouch dilated. So they'll just put me under general anaesthetic, and they'll just dilate it while I'm in there. So I do notice when my pouch narrows, it just makes it a little bit more uncomfortable to go to the toilet, and I just feel like I sit there for longer than I would normally. And it feels like you have to try and push it out, where normally I don't feel like it's not that hard. But I haven't had any blockages, but I do suffer with narrowing.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, and it's something I haven't experienced any blockages or any narrowing. I think generally I've been very lucky with my pouch journey. This isn't a question, but I did want to ask you this. And then I think that we'll open it up to see if anyone's got any extra questions. But I know it sounds like, in terms of your journey, that it's still very kind of in its early stages, and you have had quite a lot of complications. So do you regret having the J pouch, or do you think that it's still something that,
no,
like,
I really don't. And since my first step, yeah, it's not been easy. I've had 3 surgeries since then. No, 4. Well, including my takedowns. So I've had 4 surgeries. I've had lots of hospital admissions, but no, I don't regret it at all. Like, I'm so glad. And I think for me, obviously, with my possible Crohn's disease diagnosis now, there's more chances that my pouch could fail and that I could lose it. And that really upsets me because, like, pouch wise, it's doing really well. It's really healthy. And I'm really happy with it. But the other problems I've got, I can kind of cope with them. Like, so yeah, I don't regret it at all. What about yourself?
Okay, that's really good. No, I mean, as I said, like, mine wasn't really a choice. Although even it's not that it wasn't a choice. I didn't really realize it was a choice. But I think if I had had the choice explained to me, I still probably would have tried it. I think I generally kind of have this mentality in life, is that, like, you've got to try it, and if it doesn't work, then, hey, you won't have any regrets. Like, and I think that, and again, like, for all of this with pouches, there is that risk that at some point it fails, and that's something that I've thought about quite a lot. And if that day comes and I do have to go back to having a soma, that's okay. I know I can live with it, and that's fine, and whatever. But for me, I'm really glad that I have had it, and I know I've been very lucky. I have had a few problems along the way, but generally it's been quite a smooth ride, and I didn't have any post-operative complications, and I haven't yet, touch wood, had any pouchitis, even though I've had, like, kind of issues with it in terms of like IBS type symptoms. But no, I've been pretty lucky. But I don't know if anyone listening, we've still got lots of people there, so thank you so much for joining us. And I wonder whether any of you have any questions, any extra ones. Perhaps we've covered most of them, but maybe you have any more. Just pop them in the comments box and we'd be more than happy to stay on a little longer and answer them if you have them. I don't know if there's any. I wonder if there are any further up. Let me just check. Maybe we've just covered everything.
I'm sure Clemmy won't mind me saying it, but our inboxes are also always open. So if anyone did want to come to us with any questions, any personal questions, feel free to drop either as a message.
Yeah, totally.
Totally
agree with you. Oh, here. I would like to second that and just say that I know that it can be really scary, and it can be like IBD generally can be quite isolating. So I'm always happy to have a chat with you or kind of speak to you if you want to chat about my experience or whatever. So my inbox is always open, so please do that. So we do have a couple of questions here. So to what extent have your conditions been affected by stress in the past? Good question. Do you want to go first?
I don't really know. So people do say obviously that stress plays a massive part on the gut. But for me, I don't really ever notice. My husband would probably say that I'm always stressed. But I don't think I suffer with stress a lot. I get quite anxious at times, but I don't think that it's really affected me personally, like my symptoms. I don't think it's made them any worse.
Okay. Interestingly, I find that stress does have quite a big impact on my bloating and also on the consistency of the output of my pouch. So if I'm really, really stressed, it's generally more watery. If I'm not, then it's more formed. And that's something actually that I only realized someone kind of told me about it, and also through what I learned from becoming a nutritionist. And I kind of was like, yeah, stress doesn't affect me. And only when I really kind of tuned into it and had a holiday away, and then realized and put two and two together about what the difference was for me. So I definitely noticed that stress has an impact on me, and I know that it's generally I see in loads of my clients that I work with that stress is a big component for flare-ups. When you
I think as well, probably for me, because things like for me, my J-Patch probably hasn't really settled. So I've had mine in March. I've had a lot of antibiotics in that time, a few surgeries. So for me, I've probably not maybe been able to notice anything, where because you've had yours a little bit longer, you can maybe pick up on those signs a bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well, is that I think it can take a bit of a while to settle, and it does take time I have found that it really took me time to work out what works for me and what doesn't. And as I said at the beginning, that's still an ongoing journey for me. Like, I think I've got it pretty taped now. But I'm sure that will change as I go through life and my life changes and all those kind of things. So I think that's a really good point that you make. There's a question: do you still suffer any leaks at night?
Me personally, I didn't really suffer with leaks when I first had my J-Pouch, but I have found that when my pouch narrows a little bit in the night, I can have a leak. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but it will happen. So after a couple of the surgeries I've had to have it dilated, it's fine, and then obviously it goes small again, and I'll notice. But it's always when it's narrowed that I find that I get the leaks. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I think I've maybe only had one leak quite a while ago now, so it's not something that I have at all now. And I guess I'm 12 years into having a pouch. So I think it does settle. So I think,
Yeah,
but
and that's, I
everyone's
think,
again,
another
everyone's
thing to
different.
say. Like,
All the
I think
slightly,
a lot of people think that you have a lot of leaks with a J pouch. So in the early days, I didn't really have any. It's only since I've had the narrowing that I've maybe had 2 or 3 during the night. But an urgency, you can always hold it. I think I've had one accident, and that was probably the week after I got home from surgery, and I knew I needed the toilet, and I was just like, oh my God, I need to go to the toilet. But apart from that, I've not had urgency where I can't get to the toilet.
yeah, and I'm the same. I hold. It's sometimes like I think I still have a bit of anxiety around like there being a loo, but I think that's basically just like an inbuilt mechanism now. But I'm not sure I've ever had an accident with my J pouch, actually. I've certainly had moments where I'm like, whoa, I am so close to having an accident right now, but then it's okay. But yeah, it's not something that that I think. Also, you made a really good point earlier about like in terms of surgery prep, the pelvic floor exercises. I think that can be a really helpful thing to help with that holding, and using those, particularly if you haven't used them very much, if you've had a stoma or whatever, or haven't used your bum for a while. There's a couple of other ones that have come through. Are you happy to stay on for a bit and kind of? So, is there anything in particular that has helped you two in the past with excess gas in your
Mine
pouch?
would definitely be Simpro, like 100%. So one thing before I had my surgery, I didn't really think about using the toilet. Like, I knew that I'd obviously be having a normal poo, but I didn't really think about it. And passing wind as well. Like, I thought, oh, I'll be able to pass wind again. But it's not actually that simple. So for me, I can't actually pass wind unless I'm on the toilet or laying in bed, and you've got to put your knees to your chest. So I went through a period where I had really, really painful stomach. It was really bloated. So I started taking the Simprove, and within, like I said, within 3 weeks for me, it made such a big difference. Yeah. Anything
That's
you've
really
noticed?
interesting. For me, I think I definitely noticed that I have wind, but it's generally like when I'm going to the loo anyway. Like, public loos are like potentially quite embarrassing to use sometimes, because I definitely fart quite a lot when I go to the loo. And for me, actually, this is like, definitely, you guys are getting to know me really well now, is that I didn't actually like fart probably until like 3 years ago, because I think I was so scared that I'd poo myself that I did. And I think that that also my body's now got used to what like a poo feels like and what gas feels like, so I now can tell the difference between the two. That's taken years for me to get to that stage, to feel confident in that.
So that's probably why I only fart on the toilet, because I'm not going to chance it.
Yeah, no, I definitely, like, I'm not sure, I don't risk it. Okay, I think that.
So, how long are you able to hold it now? Could you go for a long walk and not worry about being near a toilet?
So I can hold it for quite a long time. I do find sitting down helps if you really need to go. I don't know if that's just me, or whether maybe that's kind of logical, I suppose. But I think I can hold it for a bit, but I'm not sure I'm regularly in a position where I can't get to the loo. I always, as well, like in any of my coats or anything like that, I do always just take loo roll with me. And I will, like, if I'm really desperate, if I'm like in the countryside, I obviously don't do it on the street. If I'm in the countryside and like can just pop into a bush, then I will do that. And actually I do go, I say that I'm not away from a loo regularly, and that's actually a lie, because I spend quite a lot of time in Scotland and go out all day on the hill walking, and I just take loo roll with me, and I just pop a squat behind a rock and go to the, like, dig a little hole with my foot, go to the loo, and then cover it over. And that's the way that I kind of deal with that. I think for me, it's more like when my pouch gets a bit more full, it's kind of uncomfortable, and then I don't, like, it's kind of uncomfortable to walk. I don't really like it. It's not that I'm like so desperate that I can't hold it. It's just that it's not very comfortable, and I don't mind doing nature poo, basically.
Yeah, so I can hold mine, and obviously I've not had mine for as long, but yeah, I can hold mine for quite a while. The longest I have been able to hold it for, I'm really proud of this, was 11 hours. Yeah.
I feel like I need to try this. I need to try like holding on a bit longer and see how it makes.
I know. So it is totally possible. You can hold it. I was a little bit uncomfortable come the end of the day, but it is possible. You can hold it. But I usually find now that I'm near a toilet, so if I need to go, I'll go. Or like you, if I was out and about and I felt uncomfortable, I wouldn't be scared to, if I'm out on the hills, to go behind a bush. I'd rather be comfortable and continue the walk.
Exactly. I find like I get a bit grumpy if I get comfortable with it. So it's just better to deal with it and then. So last question here. Actually there's actually more that's coming. How have you overcome the fear of being out and not being near a toilet but having an emergency? Has this held you back from going out and socializing? I think we kind of like have touched on that a bit, that I just take loo roll with me and go to the loo. I don't think it holds me back. I think if I'm going somewhere, I just make sure I go to the loo before I go. If I go out to a restaurant, I always go to the loo before I leave the restaurant. Like, I always just like go to the loo before to make sure. And I definitely do still have a bit of loo, like being away from a loo, fear and anxiety, but not enough for it to hold me back or like hold me back from doing things. Like, as I said, I still go walking loads out on the hill, and I'm away from a loo then, and I still do everything that I would have done before, but I just make sure that I have the loo roll with me.
And I think again, I think the fear of the J pouch is the urgency. I think that's what a lot of people think, when actually it's not that bad. Like I said, we can hold it. There's only one time that after I had a MRI with bowel prep, that's the only time I will hold my hands up and say that I just couldn't hold it. So I did actually poo myself in my car. But I had a waterproof coat. I just sat on my coat, and you know what? I just thought there's absolutely nothing I can do. But I think even somebody with a normal bowel who had bowel prep would probably feel the same as I did. So.
Right, again, like just clarifying that I do get like a little bit of urgency to go. Like, I'm like, oh, I think I need to go now.
Yeah.
But I can hold.
I need to go. I need to go now. Yeah.
Like, that's not like it was when I had my colon before. I remember what that was like, although it was like 20 something years ago now. I remember the feeling that oh God, I need to go now. It's like, oh, I need to go, but I know that, and that's okay. So it's definitely a different type of thing. It's not like go and you've got no control over it. So yeah. Someone has asked here, do you think there is any correlation to having a J pouch for UC to then developing Crohn's?
So I'm part of a lot of J pouch support groups, and my gastroenterologist has also said that in people who have UC, who go on to have a J pouch, if Crohn's then does develop, it's not that it's a new diagnosis, it's that they could have had Crohn's before, but it was just dormant. And obviously Crohn's is really hard to detect. It's really hard to pick up unless you're flaring. So yeah, I don't think that the J pouch causes it or that it's anything to do with the J pouch, but it's putting from having an ileostomy and then putting your small intestine back to use, you're holding stuff. It can, yeah, just wake it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, doesn't it? That or perhaps it was a misdiagnosis before and actually it was Crohn's all along, or it's a secondary thing. So
I definitely would recommend those.
Yeah.
Anybody is really considering having the J pouch, wants to learn a bit more about it. There's some really good support groups on Facebook, a lot better than Instagram because there's more people talking about it. You'll be able to see any like issues, any concerns, and also some really, really positive success stories on there as well. And there are a few people on there who touch on having UC and then developing Crohn's, but there's also a lot of people who are still just UC, like that their diagnosis has never changed.
Yeah, and mine hasn't changed. I love someone has just Ostomate and the City from Vancouver in Canada. Hey, from international, that's so cool. There's a question from Scott here about, does flying affect your pouch and is any noticeable changes with the air pressure? That's a great question.
No,
Have you
not
flown
yet.
with your pouch yet? I don't notice any difference. So I fly normally when it's not a pandemic, do fly quite a bit. Normally like kind of shorter trips, I go up to Scotland and back or whatever, and I don't notice any difference. The only thing I think I do notice maybe is longer haul flights. More, I think, just sitting still in the same position for ages. I just feel like, what? I don't think it's anything to do with my pouch. I think everyone feels like it. You just feel a bit rubbish from sitting around and the pressure. But specifically on the pouch, I haven't noticed that the air pressure makes any difference to that. So yeah, I don't know if you've read anywhere, Sinead, that it does.
I haven't seen anything.
And one last question, and then we've been on an hour, so I think maybe we should let everyone go. But the last question is, do you take loperamide daily?
Yeah, no, I don't. When I first started my new job, I was a little bit, it was all new to me, and I was thinking, oh, I'm really worried about needing to go to the toilet at work. It's a new situation. So I would take one in the morning, and that was it. But actually on my first day at work, we discussed pooing at work, and from then it just made things so much easier. And I was like, I'm not going to take loperamide anymore. But yeah, I don't take it really at all. Even days where my stools are a little bit looser, I still don't think that, for me, I don't really need it. I'll have it, I'll put it in my handbag, I'll take it out with me just in case like I do ever feel like I need it, but no. And how about yourself?
That's really interesting. Yeah, I never have really. As I said earlier on, I was taking codeine for a bit, but I weaned myself off that quite a while ago now. And I do have some Imodium like in the cabinet somewhere that I bought, I think, like ages ago. It's probably out of date now. So I don't use it. And our friend from Canada says she has no issues with flying. So there's another person who has no issues with flying. So thank you, our Canadian friend. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sinead, for agreeing to chat about this. And good. Well, thank you everyone as well for your amazing questions. I hope that our answers have been helpful to you. And as Sinead said earlier, both of our inboxes are always open. So if you have any questions or just want to chat to a friendly face or whatever, someone who knows what you're going through, then we're always here. I'll save this so that it's on my good thing afterwards, so that you can come back and watch it if you want to at another stage. But thank you so much again, Sinead, for all your honesty and amazing responses, and thank you again everyone for giving up
and for sticking with us for so long.
Join us. Amazing, it's amazing. So, yeah, anyway,
thanks everyone,
and have a nice evening.
bye.